Some women don't scream when they're hurt. They go silent, they smile, they say I'm fine, and the world believes them. But here's the truth. Women who act like they don't care often once cared too much. They just learned that caring out loud gets them hurt. So they built walls, not out of stone but out of self-preservation. This isn't coldness, it's survival. And today we're diving into the psychology behind that silence, the hidden mind of women who seem untouchable but are anything but. If you've ever met a woman who looks emotionally detached, who shrugs at birthdays, ignores texts, or moves on like nothing happened, you probably thought, she just doesn't care. But psychology says otherwise. Behind emotional detachment often lies hyperempathy, burnout, and deep emotional fatigue. This video isn't about blaming, it's about understanding how women get there and what that emotional armor really means. This isn't a superficial examination of behavior. It's a deep, compassionate exploration into the mechanisms that lead a person to sheath their heart in layers of perceived indifference. The woman who seems to navigate life with an unshakable poise, who appears immune to the emotional turbulence that affects others, is frequently a master of a very specific kind of internal alchemy. She has learned, through painful experience, to transmute the raw, chaotic energy of her feelings into a cool, placid exterior. You might see her walk away from a conflict without a word, or greet news of a personal setback with a calm nod, and interpret it as a lack of investment. However, what you are likely witnessing is not an absence of feeling, but a highly developed and often exhausting method of containing it. It's a psychological fortress built brick by brick with every disappointment, every instance of vulnerability being met with betrayal, and every time her emotional openness was treated not as a gift, but as a liability. This armor, while effective, comes at a significant cost, isolating her not just from others, but from the very core of her own emotional landscape. Understanding this is the first step towards seeing the person behind the persona, the profound sensitivity that fuels the performance of detachment. We are peeling back the layers to reveal the intricate and often painful journey that sculpts such a resilient, yet solitary, figure. Let's start with the truth most people miss. Women who act like they don't care once felt everything. They were the ones who overthought every text, who carried the emotional weight of every relationship, who loved deeply and got disappointed even deeper. Imagine a person whose natural state is one of profound empathy, someone who feels the subtle shifts in a room's atmosphere as if they were changes in barometric pressure. This was her starting point. She was the friend who stayed on the phone until 3 in the morning, absorbing a friend's crisis as if it were her own. She was the partner who meticulously planned celebrations, remembered obscure details, and constantly monitored the emotional well-being of the person she loved, often at the expense of her own. She poured her energy into relationships with the unwavering belief that to love was to give, to feel, and to be present, completely and utterly. But this emotional generosity, when repeatedly met with indifference, neglect, or exploitation, becomes a source of chronic injury. Each unanswered act of kindness, each moment of one-sided emotional labor, becomes a small tear in her psychological fabric. At some point, the nervous system just says, enough. It's not that she doesn't care anymore. It's that her brain learned to protect her heart by going numb. In psychology, it's called emotional shutdown, a coping mechanism where the mind suppresses emotional reactions to avoid further pain. This is a profound and instinctual act of self-preservation, akin to a circuit breaker tripping to prevent an electrical fire. When the emotional cost of caring becomes too high, the mind initiates a protective state of numbness. It's a biological imperative to avoid a complete system collapse. So that I don't care look. It's not indifference, it's self-defense. It's the quiet, determined retreat of a heart that has been on the front lines for too long and has finally decided that survival requires a strategic withdrawal. The stillness you observe is not emptiness, it is a shield, forged in the fires of past emotional battles, held up to protect what little remains unscathed. Here's something deeper. Many women grow up being told to be kind, be giving, be the bigger person. They learn to attach their value to how much they care for others. This conditioning starts early, woven into the fabric of fairy tales, societal expectations, and familial roles. They are praised for their nurturing spirit, their ability to soothe, and their willingness to place the needs of others before their own. Their sense of self-worth becomes inextricably linked to their capacity for empathy and sacrifice. The good woman is often defined as one who gives endlessly without expecting anything in return. She is the emotional bedrock for her family, her friends, and her partner, expected to absorb pain and radiate comfort. This role, while socially lauded, creates a precarious psychological foundation. But when that care isn't reciprocated, when she is taken for granted, her brain rewires the belief, if caring hurts, maybe not caring will protect me. This isn't a cynical, calculated decision made overnight. It's a slow, painful cognitive shift born from 1,000 small betrayals. It's the realization that the emotional well she has been drawing from to nourish others is not being replenished. The constant giving, met with a void of acknowledgement or reciprocity, leads to a state of profound emotional depletion. Her brain, in its quest for equilibrium, begins to associate the act of caring with a sensation of pain. That's how emotional independence begins, not from empowerment, but from exhaustion. It's a form of independence born of necessity, a last-ditch effort to conserve her dwindling emotional resources. Yet over time, this defense becomes identity. She becomes the cool girl, the I'm fine woman, the one who never asks, never complains. Everyone praises her for being so strong. But strength built on suppression isn't strength, it's survival. She is commended for her low-maintenance nature, her resilience, her ability to handle everything on her own. People marvel at her strength, never questioning the immense pressure that forged it. This external validation reinforces the defensive posture, cementing the mask of indifference until it begins to feel like her true face. The performance of strength becomes her prison, isolating her in a fortress of her own making, where the world sees a stoic warrior but misses the weary soul trapped within. There's power in detachment, but there's also a quiet sadness. Emotionally detached women often crave depth, but fear being misunderstood again. The very armor that protects them also isolates them. Deep down, the longing for genuine connection, for a space where their true feelings can be seen and held without judgment, persists. Yet the memory of past hurts acts as a powerful deterrent. The risk of opening up again feels monumental. The potential for being taken for granted or having their vulnerability used against them too great a gamble. They are fluent in silence, fluent in pretending. They have mastered the art of the non-committal smile, the vague response, the quick subject change. These are not signs of shallowness, but rather highly skilled conversational maneuvers designed to keep others at a safe emotional distance. Psychology calls this avoidant coping, a subconscious strategy to control vulnerability. Because if she feels too much, she might lose control, and if she feels nothing, she at least feels safe. Feeling, in her experience, is a gateway to chaos, a force that has previously led to heartbreak and exhaustion. The numbness, therefore, becomes a form of control in a world that felt uncontrollable. By regulating her emotional output to near zero, she maintains a sense of stability and predictability. Safety is found not in connection, but in its absence. But here's the paradox: the more she acts like she doesn't care, the more she disconnects from her own emotional truth. The constant performance of indifference requires a suppression of her authentic self. Over time, it becomes difficult to distinguish the mask from the wearer. The silence that was once a shield becomes a cage, preventing her from accessing her own joy, her own sorrow, her own passion. She may feel safe, but she is also profoundly alone, disconnected from the richness of her own inner world. Real strength isn't not feeling, it's feeling everything and still choosing peace. It is the courage to be vulnerable again, but with newfound wisdom and boundaries. It is the ability to acknowledge the pain of the past without letting it dictate the future, and to find a way to engage with the world authentically, without sacrificing her own well-being. So if you know a woman who acts like she doesn't care, don't assume she's cold. Assume she's been through enough to choose silence over chaos. Look beyond the placid surface and consider the history that might have necessitated such a formidable defense. Her calmness is not a sign of apathy. It is a hard-won peace, a deliberate choice to disengage from the emotional storms that once threatened to drown her. Her silence is not an absence of thought or feeling, but a sanctuary she has built for herself when the world became too loud, too demanding, too painful. Behind her calm face might be stories you'll never hear, but her strength lies in how she hides her pain. It's in how she keeps showing up despite it. This is the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed. The real triumph is not the absence of scars, but the will to continue moving forward with them. It's the resilience to get out of bed each morning, to engage with the world, and to maintain a semblance of normalcy when her inner landscape may be in turmoil. Her strength is demonstrated in her perseverance, in her refusal to be completely broken by her experiences, even if it means she can no longer afford to be emotionally unguarded, because women who act like they don't care often just stopped waiting for someone to notice when they did. They learned, through repeated disappointment, that broadcasting their needs, their hopes, and their hurts was a futile exercise. They realized that their emotional well-being was a responsibility that they alone had to bear. So they packed up their feelings, stored them away, and learned to be their own source of comfort, their own rescuer. The woman you see who appears not to care is, in many ways, a testament to her own survival. She is a woman who learned to save herself. If you found this video meaningful, share it with someone who understands silent strength, because empathy spreads faster than apathy.